The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 7 of the most powerful species in the known universe. Tall crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves, and the air smelled of 1,000 different worlds. At the center of this magnificent room, a single human woman stood alone. Admiral Catherine Cole had served humanity for 40 years. She had gray hair tied back in a simple knot. Her uniform was plain compared to the elaborate robes worn by the alien delegates around her. Beside her stood Secretary Nathan Price, a tall man with dark skin and worried eyes. They were the only humans in a room full of beings who considered humanity nothing more than a minor annoyance. "Hi." Ambassador Zethral of the Voran hegemony rose from his seat. He was a reptilian creature, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted color depending on his mood. Right now, they were a deep blue, the color of arrogance and satisfaction. His four-fingered hands held a document that would decide the fate of every human being alive. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding the human question," Zethral announced. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language. Humanity will surrender 60% of its colony worlds to Council administration. The human military fleet will be reduced to 50 vessels, suitable only for local defense. All humans will submit to genetic cataloging for potential labor assignments across Council space. Catherine felt Nathan tense beside her. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, warning him to stay calm. Furthermore, Zethral continued, his mandibles clicking with pleasure. Humanity will pay a tribute of resources equal to 20% of its annual production. This tribute will continue for 100 standard years as compensation for the inconvenience humanity has caused the Council. The other delegates made sounds of approval. The Kolfani, insect-like creatures with compound eyes, rubbed their front legs together in agreement. The Morthani, massive beings that resembled bears covered in metal plates, stomped their feet in support. "You have 30 solar cycles to comply with these terms," Zethral said. Looking directly at Catherine with his cold yellow eyes, "Failure to accept will result in the full military intervention of the Council's combined fleet. Your species will be pacified by force, if necessary."
Catherine had expected something like this.
Human intelligence operatives, led by a brilliant young captain named Daniel Hayes, had been intercepting Council communications for months. She knew the Council had never intended to treat with humanity as equals. This was not diplomacy. This was a death sentence dressed in fancy words. "May I respond?" Catherine asked. Her voice was calm and steady. Zethral's scales flickered to purple, a sign of amusement among his people. "You may beg for mercy if you wish, human. Though I should tell you that the Council has already decided, your words will change nothing." Catherine looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. These species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They'd conquered dozens of younger races, enslaved billions of beings, and destroyed anyone who challenged their authority. They looked at humanity the way a boot looks at an insect. "The United Earth government rejects these terms," Catherine said simply. For a moment there was complete silence. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted in languages that sounded like music, like thunder, like breaking glass. Zethral's scales turned bright red with rage, and he slammed his fist against his podium. "You cannot reject them," he roared. "You are in no position to refuse anything. Your species controls a tiny corner of the galaxy. You have fewer than 100 combat-capable ships. The Council commands thousands of vessels and trillions of soldiers. You will accept these terms, or you will be destroyed." Catherine waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "You misunderstand me, Ambassador. We are not negotiating. We are refusing. Humanity will not surrender a single colony. We will not dismantle a single ship. We will not submit our children to your genetic programs or our workers to your labor camps. These terms are unacceptable, and we reject them completely." "Then you choose extinction," Zethral declared. "The Council fleet will reduce your worlds to ash. Your species will be remembered only as a cautionary tale about the foolishness of defying the natural order." Catherine gathered her documents and turned to leave. As she walked toward the exit, She paused and looked back at the assembled delegates. "You have spent centuries believing that you are the masters of this galaxy," she said. "You have conquered and enslaved and destroyed, and no one has ever told you no. So I understand why you think you can do the same to us. But you are wrong about humanity. We are not like the others you have crushed. We do not surrender. We do not submit. And we do not forget." She took another step toward the door, then stopped again. "1 year ago, Ambassador, your ships attacked a human research vessel in neutral space. 47 scientists and crew members were killed. When we asked for justice, you told us their lives had no value. 3 months ago, your Kelthani allies seized a human cargo ship carrying food to one of our outer colonies. The crew was sold into slavery. When we demanded their return, you laughed at us." Catherine's voice grew harder with each word. "You have insulted us, stolen from us, murdered our people, and treated us like animals. And now you stand there offering us terms of surrender, as if we should be grateful you are willing to let us live as slaves. No, Ambassador. Humanity does not accept your terms. Humanity rejects them, and humanity will make you regret every moment you spent thinking we were beneath your notice." She turned and walked out of the chamber, Nathan following close behind. The doors closed behind them, cutting off the sounds of alien outrage. "That was quite a speech," Nathan said as they hurried toward their shuttle. "Do you think they believed you?" "It does not matter if they believed me," Catherine replied. "What matters is what happens next." Captain Hayes confirmed that the Council was going to subjugate us regardless of what we agreed to. They never wanted peace. They wanted obedience. So what do we do now? Catherine stopped at the airlock of their shuttle and looked out a nearby window at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of human beings were going about their daily lives, unaware that their fate had just been decided in a room full of aliens who considered them worthless. "Now we go home," she said. "And we show the Council why humanity should never have been pushed this far. They wanted a war. They are going to get one. But it will not end the way they expect." The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and the two humans began the long journey back to Earth, carrying with them the declaration that would change the galaxy forever. 3 months passed after Catherine Cole walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. In that time, the Council assembled the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 300 years. 4,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space, their weapons charged, and their crews eager for conquest. The admirals and generals of 7 species looked at their fleet and saw certain victory. They could not have been more wrong. On Earth, President Marcus Webb stood before the United Nations General Assembly. The chamber was packed with representatives from every human colony. From the oldest settlements on Mars to the newest outposts on the edge of explored space, every face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. "They believe we are weak because we are young," Marcus said, his deep voice filling the room. "They look at our small territory and our limited fleet, and they see easy prey. They have ruled this galaxy for so long that they have forgotten what it means to face an enemy who refuses to surrender." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The Council thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They have studied our history, our technology, our military strength. They believe they have accounted for every advantage we might possess. But they have made one critical error. They have underestimated human determination. They have forgotten that we are a species born from struggle, that every great achievement in our history has come from facing impossible odds and refusing to accept defeat." The chamber erupted in applause, but Marcus raised his hand for silence. "In the coming weeks, our military will reveal capabilities that the Council does not know we possess. Our scientists and engineers have been working in secret for 15 years, preparing for the day when we would need to defend ourselves against a hostile galaxy. That day has come, and we are ready." Far above the red surface of Mars, hidden inside asteroids that had been hollowed out and transformed into secret shipyards, Chief Engineer Patricia long watched the final preparations on humanity's greatest secret. The Resolve-class dreadnoughts were massive vessels, each one larger than anything the Council had ever built. Their hulls were covered in armor plating that could withstand direct hits from enemy weapons. Their shields used technology that the Council did not possess, systems that could absorb incoming energy and redirect it into the ship's own weapon banks. And their engines were powered by the Cascade Drive, humanity's revolutionary faster-than-light system that was 3 times faster than anything else in the galaxy. Commander Samuel Grant, Patricia's military liaison, stared at the nearest dray. Adnot, with wide eyes. He had commanded ships for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "How many do we have operational?" he asked. 47 dreadnoughts, Patricia replied, plus another 200 support vessels. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers. Everything we need. Samuel's face fell. Against 4,000 enemy ships? Patricia smiled and pulled up a holographic display. Blue light filled the air between them, showing weapon specifications and performance data that made Samuel gasp. "Commander, let me show you what human engineers can do when we stop asking for permission and start building what we actually need." She pointed to the weapon systems. "Our main guns fire antimatter torpedoes with yields 10 times greater than anything the Council possesses. One direct hit can destroy their largest battleship. Our point defense systems can track and eliminate incoming fire with 98% accuracy. And our shields? Well, you have to see them in action to believe what they can do." "What about their numbers?" Samuel asked. "Even with superior technology, 4,000 ships is a lot to overcome." "That is where the Cascade Drive comes in," Patricia explained. "Their ships need 30 seconds to charge their jump drives. Ours need 3. We can appear behind their lines, fire, and vanish before they can even lock weapons on us. We are not going to fight them head-on, Commander. We are going to hunt them." On the colony world of New Boston, a young lieutenant named Grace Murphy received her deployment orders. She would be commanding a ground defense unit, one of thousands being prepared across human space to resist any Council invasion. Her sergeant, a grizzled veteran named Henry Torres, found her reading the orders in the barracks. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from decades of combat. "You scared?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Grace thought about the question carefully. Outside the window, she could see civilians and soldiers working together to fortify the colony. Farmers were digging trenches alongside engineers. Teachers were learning to use weapons. Children were helping to fill sandbags. Now, she said honestly, "I am angry. My grandmother came to this world 60 years ago with nothing but hope and a suitcase of seeds. She built a farm, raised a family, and helped turn this planet into a home. The Council wants to take that from us. They want to turn my people into slaves." Henry nodded approvingly. "Good. Anger keeps you sharp. Fear makes you hesitate. Remember that when the fighting starts?" The same scene was happening across human space. Factory workers volunteered for military service. Scientists worked through the night developing new weapons and defenses. Musicians wrote songs about resistance and hope. Artists painted murals of defiance on the walls of every city. Humanity, a species so often divided by petty differences and ancient grudges, united in the face of extinction on the command ship of the Council fleet. Admiral Zethrel reviewed his battle plans with complete confidence. His intelligence reports showed that humanity had perhaps 300 vessels capable of combat, and most of those were small frigates and patrol craft. His 4,000 warships would crush them in a matter of days. "The humans have made their choice," he told his officers. "They had the chance to survive as servants, and they refused. Now they will be erased from the galaxy. Their worlds will be divided among the Council species. Their technology will be studied and catalogued, and their name will be forgotten within a generation." His officers clicked their mandibles in agreement. None of them could imagine any outcome other than total victory. They had no way of knowing that human intelligence operatives had placed monitoring devices on their ships. Months ago, every communication, every battle plan, every strategic decision was being transmitted to Admiral Catherine Cole's command center. She knew exactly where the Council fleet would strike, exactly what tactics they would use, and exactly how to counter every move they planned to make. The Council fleet began its advance toward human space. Confident that they were about to add another conquered species to their empire, they were flying straight into a trap. The Council fleet crossed into human space on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. 4,000 warships moved in perfect formation, their commanders expecting to encounter scattered resistance that would crumble within hours. Admiral Zethrel stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars slide past as his armada advanced toward the first human colony in their path. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "we are detecting human vessels at the edge of our scanner range. Approximately 50 ships." Zethrel's scales shifted to a pleased blue color. 50 ships against 4,000. The humans are even more foolish than I thought. Order the Vanguard to destroy them. 200 Council warships broke formation and accelerated toward the human position, their weapons charged. Their crews eager to draw first blood in what they believed would be an easy war. The human ships did something unexpected. Instead of fleeing or forming a defensive line, they scattered in 12 different directions, moving faster than any vessel Zethrel had ever seen. Before his vanguard could adjust, the human ships vanished from sensors entirely. Where did they go? Zethrel demanded. His sensor officer's compound eyes blinked rapidly in confusion. "I do not know, Admiral. Their drive signatures simply disappeared. They are not using any faster-than-light technology in our database." 3 seconds later, the human ships reappeared directly behind the Council vanguard. Antimatter torpedoes streaked through space, each one carrying enough destructive power to crack a small moon. The Council ships had no time to raise shields or evade. 40 vessels exploded in the first volley. The human ships vanished again before the survivors could return fire. On the bridge of the dreadnought Defiance, Admiral Catherine Cole watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. Around her, officers coordinated the movements of humanity's secret fleet with calm efficiency. Squadron 3 reports successful strike on enemy formation, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone announced. 42 confirmed kills. No losses on our side. Order them to jump to coordinates Delta 7 and prepare for another attack run, Catherine replied. Squadron 5. Target the enemy supply ships. I want their logistics in chaos before they understand what is happening to them. The battle continued for 6 hours. Human squadrons appeared at random points around the Council fleet, struck hard and disappeared before the enemy could respond. The Council's superior numbers meant nothing when they could not even find targets to shoot. Zethrel watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships exploded every few minutes, but his gunners could not claim a single human vessel in return. The enemy moved like ghosts, appearing and vanishing at will, always striking from unexpected angles. How is this possible? He roared at his science officer, a nervous Kelthani named Vrix. Their technology was supposed to be inferior to ours. Our intelligence said they had no advanced weapons. Vrix studied the sensor data with trembling antennae. Their drive technology is far beyond our estimates, Admiral. They are appearing and disappearing faster than our targeting systems can achieve lock. And their weapons have yields we did not think possible for ships of their size. Then we retreat and regroup, Zethrel decided. Signal all ships to fall back to the Korath Nebula. We need time to analyze this new information. The Council fleet began to withdraw, but Catherine had anticipated this move. 3 of her dreadnoughts, each one larger than anything the Council had ever built, appeared directly in the fleet's path. Their massive weapons glowed with barely contained energy. All Council vessels, Catherine's voice broadcast across every frequency. This is Admiral Catherine Cole of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 2 options. Withdraw from human space immediately and return to Council territory, or we will destroy you completely. This is your only warning. There will be no negotiation. Zethrel's scales flushed dark red with fury. No one had ever spoken to a Council fleet this way. No one had ever dared. All ships concentrate fire on those 3 vessels, he ordered. Show these humans what happens when they threaten the Council. 3,000 warships turned their weapons toward the human dreadnoughts. Energy beams lanced through space, enough firepower to melt a continent. The barrage continued for a full minute, pouring destruction toward the human position. When the light faded, the 3 dreadnoughts were still there. Their shields had absorbed every shot, glowing brilliant white from the energy they had captured, but showing no sign of damage. Possible. Vrix whispered. The dreadnoughts returned fire. Zethral's flagship vanished in a sphere of white light as antimatter warheads detonated against its hull. The explosion was so powerful that 30 nearby ships were caught in the blast and destroyed instantly. Debris scattered across space in every direction on New Boston. Grace Murphy and her ground defense unit watched the battle broadcast on a public screen in the town square. Thousands of colonists had gathered to see what was happening to the fleet that had come to enslave them. When Zethral's flagship exploded, the crowd erupted in cheers. People hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. Henry Torres lifted Grace onto his shoulders so she could see over the crowd. "That is for my grandmother," Grace shouted, her voice lost in the celebration in space. The Council fleet did something that no Council military force had done in 500 years of dominance. They fled, ships scattered in every direction, their crews abandoning formation in desperate attempts to escape the human dreadnoughts. Jump drives activated at random, sending vessels to any destination that was not here. Discipline collapsed as captains ignored orders and thought only of survival. Catherine watched the rout with grim satisfaction. "Do not pursue," she ordered her fleet. "Let them run. Let them carry word of what happened here, back to the Council. Let them tell every species in the galaxy that humanity is not to be threatened." The first battle of the war was over. The Council had lost over 500 ships. Humanity had lost none, and the galaxy would never be the same. News of the Council. Fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species, from the mightiest to the most humble, heard the story of how the young human race had humiliated the greatest military power in known space. For the first time in centuries, beings who had lived under Council rule began to wonder if things could be different. On the Kelthani homeworld, deep in an underground bunker that had been hidden from Council authorities for generations, a resistance movement stirred to life. Their leader was an elderly female named Shrix, her compound eyes clouded with age but still sharp with intelligence. She had spent her entire life watching her people serve the Council as laborers and soldiers, dying in wars that meant nothing to them. "The humans have shown us what is possible," she told the hundreds of Kelthani gathered before her. They were supposed to be weak. The Council said they would be crushed in days. Instead, they destroyed the Council's fleet and sent the survivors running for their lives. "If humanity can stand against our masters, so can we." Her followers clicked their mandibles in agreement. For the first time in living memory, hope spread through the Kelthani people. Similar scenes unfolded across Council space. The Morthani, a proud species that had been conquered 300 years earlier, began sabotaging Council installations on their occupied worlds. Factory workers broke machines. Soldiers refused orders. Governors found their offices empty as their staff simply walked away. The Vril, who had served as slaves in Council factories for generations, organized work stoppages that crippled military production. Ships that should have been repaired sat idle in dockyards. Weapons that should have been manufactured never left the assembly lines. The war machine that had kept the Council in power for millennia began to grind to a halt. The Council, which had ruled through fear and the belief that resistance was impossible, discovered that belief crumbling beneath their feet. On Earth, President Marcus Webb met with his senior advisors in a secure bunker beneath the old United Nations building. Catherine Cole attended via holographic link from the Defiance, her image flickering slightly with the distance. "We have an opportunity that may never come again," said Secretary Nathan Price, spreading data across the conference table. "The Council is fracturing. Their subject species are rising up everywhere. Their military is stretched thin, trying to suppress internal rebellions while also defending against us. What do you recommend?" Marcus asked. Catherine leaned forward, her holographic image becoming sharper as she focused. "We need to press the advantage immediately. Every day we wait, the Council rebuilds. They are rushing new ships into production, training new crews, developing countermeasures against our technology. If we give them time to recover, this war could drag on for years. And if we attack now, we strike at their heart," Catherine replied. "The Varan homeworld is the center of Council power. If we can capture it, the remaining Council species will have no choice but to surrender. We end the war in months instead of decades. Marcus considered the proposal carefully. He was not a military man, and the thought of ordering an invasion that would cost thousands of lives weighed heavily on him. But he also knew that every day the war continued, more people died. Human colonists, council soldiers, innocent beings caught in the crossfire. "How confident are you in success?" he asked. "Is confident enough to lead the assault personally?" Catherine answered without hesitation. Marcus looked around the room at his advisors. One by one, they nodded their agreement. The decision was made. "Prepare Operation Deliverance," Marcus ordered, "and may God forgive us for what we are about to do." 3 weeks later, the largest human fleet ever assembled jumped to the edge of the Varan system. 100 dreadnoughts, 500 support vessels, and transports carrying 2 million ground troops emerged from faster-than-light travel within striking distance of the enemy. Homeworld. The Varan had known the humans would come eventually. They had assembled every remaining ship they could find, nearly 1,000 vessels forming a defensive sphere around their planet. Ground forces dug into fortified positions on the surface. Orbital defense platforms charged their weapons. Catherine broadcast her final offer on every frequency. "People of Varan, this is Admiral Catherine Cole of the United Earth Defense Force. Your leaders brought this war upon you. They attacked our ships, enslaved our people, and threatened to destroy our species. But humanity does not seek revenge against innocent beings. We want only peace." She paused, letting her words be translated into the Varan language. "Surrender now. Remove the High Council from power and accept democratic reforms. Do this, and we will show you the mercy that you never showed others. We will help rebuild what the war has destroyed. We will treat your people with dignity and respect. This is my offer. It will not be repeated." In the council chamber on the Varan homeworld, High Chancellor Vrethok listened to the human transmission with contempt. He was old, his scales faded with age. But his hatred for the upstart humans burned as hot as ever. "We do not surrender to lesser species," he declared. "Order all forces to attack. We will drown these humans in their own blood." The Varan fleet advanced to meet the human armada. Weapons fire lit up the darkness of space as thousands of ships engaged in the largest battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. But the outcome was never in doubt. Human dreadnoughts tore through the Varan, formation like predators through a herd. Their shields absorbed everything the defenders threw at them. Their weapons reduced enemy ships to expanding clouds of debris. Squadrons of human fighters swarmed the larger Varan vessels, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. Within 4 hours, the Varan fleet was broken. Survivors fled in every direction, abandoning their homeworld to save themselves. Catherine turned her attention to the orbital defenses and ground installations. One by one, they were neutralized by precise strikes that destroyed military targets while minimizing civilian casualties. The skies were clear. Human dropships descended through the atmosphere. Carrying the ground forces that would secure the planet, Grace Murphy was among the first wave of soldiers to set foot on Varan soil. The air smelled strange, and the gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's standard, but she barely noticed. Her unit advanced through the streets of the capital city, meeting scattered resistance that melted away before their superior firepower. By sunset, the Varan High Council had been captured. The war was not over, but its outcome was no longer in question. Humanity had won. The surrender ceremony took place in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the same room where humanity had been given its ultimatum 2 years earlier. The crystal pillars still rose toward the star-filled ceiling, and the air still carried the scent of 100 different worlds. But everything else had changed. Admiral Catherine Cole stood at the central podium, her gray hair now completely white from the stress of war. Around her, delegates from every species in the galaxy sat in nervous silence. The Varan representatives kept their scales carefully neutral, hiding their shame and fear. The Kelthani delegation included Shrix, the resistance leader who had helped overthrow council rule on her homeworld. The Morthani sat tall and proud for the first time in 3 centuries. The Galactic Council as it existed is hereby dissolved. Catherine announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. The era of conquest and domination is over. The practice of enslaving younger species ends today. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of delegates who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant. Let me be clear about something. Humanity did not want this war. We did not seek empire or conquest. When we first reached the stars, we hoped to find friends and trading partners. We hoped to learn from species older and wiser than ourselves. Instead, we found masters who wanted only to use us. Catherine's voice hardened slightly. You gave us an ultimatum. Surrender or die. Give up our freedom or be destroyed. And when we refused, you sent 4,000 warships to crush us. You thought we would break easily, because that is what young species always do. You were wrong. Secretary Nathan Price stepped forward, carrying a thick document bound in leather. The pages contained the result of months of negotiation. Drafted by human diplomats working alongside representatives from the freed species. This is the new Galactic Compact, he announced. It establishes a framework for peaceful coexistence among all sapient species in the galaxy. No more conquest. No more slavery. No more genetic cataloging or forced labor programs. Every species, regardless of age or technological development, will have equal rights under its provisions. He opened the document to its final page, where dozens of signature lines waited to be filled. Those who sign this compact will be protected by its terms. Those who refuse will face the consequences of that choice. One by one, the delegates came forward to add their marks. The Kothani signed eagerly, their mandibles clicking with joy. The Morthani signed with solemn dignity, finally free after 300 years of occupation. Even the Varan representative, a nephew of the executed High Chancellor, signed without protest. When the last signature was complete, Catherine addressed the assembly one final time. This document is not a victory for humanity. It is a victory for every being who has ever suffered under tyranny. It is a promise that the galaxy can be better than it was. But words on paper mean nothing without action. The real work begins now. In the months and years that followed, humanity faced the enormous challenge of helping to rebuild a galaxy scarred by centuries of oppression. Ships that had carried weapons now carried food and medical supplies. Soldiers became peacekeepers. Engineers who had designed instruments of war now built schools and hospitals and power plants. Grace Murphy, promoted to colonel after her service in the war, led reconstruction efforts on 3 former council worlds. She walked through cities that had been reduced to rubble and helped survivors rebuild their lives. She learned to speak fragments of a dozen alien languages and made friends among species that had once been enemies. You know what surprised me most? She told Henry Torres one evening, watching an alien sunset paint the sky in colors that had no names in English. How similar we all are. Different bodies, different histories, but the same hopes. Everyone wants safety for their families. Everyone wants a chance to build something better. Henry nodded slowly. He had seen too much death in his long career to be surprised by anything. That is why the Council feared us, I think. Not because of our weapons or our technology, because we reminded them of who they used to be before they forgot what it meant to hope. On Earth, President Marcus Webb served 2 more terms before retiring to a small house by the ocean. He spent his final years writing a history of the war, determined that future generations would understand the cost of freedom and the importance of defending it. Nathan Price became humanity's first ambassador to the new Galactic Assembly, spending decades building relationships with species that had once been enemies. He was known for his patience, his fairness, and his ability to find common ground between beings who seemed to have nothing in common. Catherine Cole retired from military service a year after the war ended. She accepted a position as an advisor to the Assembly, helping to design the peacekeeping forces that would prevent future conflicts. Her office overlooked the same chamber where she had rejected the Council's ultimatum. A daily reminder of how far humanity had come. On the 10th anniversary of the war's end, a reporter traveled to Catherine's home on Mars to interview her. They sat in her garden, surrounded by flowers from a dozen different worlds. while the red dust of Mars swirled in the thin wind outside. People ask me if I have regrets, Catherine said, her weathered hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The death, the destruction, the suffering we caused? Of course I do. War is never clean, and victory always comes with a price. There are nights when I cannot sleep because I remember the ships we destroyed, the lives we ended. She looked up at the alien flowers, gifts from species that had once tried to enslave her people. But I do not regret standing up when the alternative was submission. I do not regret saying no to beings who wanted to take everything from us. Humanity learned something important in that war, something that the rest of the galaxy is still learning. What is that? The reporter asked. Catherine smiled. And it was the same smile she had worn when she walked out of the council chamber all those years ago. Not pleasant, not gentle, but fierce with pride and determination. That some things are worth fighting for. That freedom is not given, but earned. And that the species that seems weakest, the newcomers that nobody takes seriously, might just be the ones who change everything. She set down her tea and looked up at the stars visible through the dome of her garden. The same stars that humanity had once feared to explore. They pushed us too far, she said softly, and the galaxy will never be the same. Somewhere out among those stars, on 100 different worlds, children of a dozen species learned the story of the human war. They learned about the young race that had refused to surrender, the fleet that had fought against impossible odds, the courage that had broken the Council's power forever, and they learned the most important lesson of all: never push humanity too far.